Hello, I'm back again with a new book this time. The book I talked many times about. It's about pharmaceuticals and the development of psychotropics. The book is written by Richard Miller, and it's titled "Drug: The Science and Culture Behind Psychotropic Drugs." This the writer I don't know much about, but he's said to be a pharmacist and somebody with science experience and studies. Um, but I liked the book. It looked as if it had been well researched and has very valuable information that a person needs to know. With a person with interest in science and specifically the development of pharmaceuticals and the use of herbal and herbal herbs and plants the in pharmaceutical manufacturing. So I will present the first chapter. I will represent other chapters. I will just present them to you, not represent them, and I will make sure that I included most of the poems that I thought were interesting and valuable to share with you. The first chapter is it tracks the journey of Amanita muscaria, or fly agaric, as has been described or named. It's a red-capped, white-dotted mushroom. The mushroom that had been used in ancient times in religious rituals for its psychedelic effect, as it is one of such plants that alters the brain functioning and induce a trance-like experience filled with all types of hallucinations. This chapter tracks the use of this particular mushroom across history till it finally had been dissected by modern curious science, and it yielded its magical wild secrets that were tamed to the beneficial usage such as of health, such as the treatment of tinnitus. After the German and American Lundberg and Merck pharma companies failed to pass it across the FDA front door as hypnotic for fears of tolerance and abuse risk, if taken at higher level than what is recommended for its or if it's taken by a risk population. He opens the chapter talking about an archaeological site, Göbekli Tepe. We've seen many talks about it and heard it on the internet media. And the translation of Göbekli Tepe, what it means pot-belly hill. In this place that has been excavated in Turkey, South Turkey, revealed that it is the cradle of humanity, said. Now, what's the significance of this to what the author is going to present in this chapter? The site has been dated to have been since 11,000 or 11,500 years, and it is dated 11,011 or to 11,500 years old, an era that is peopled by hunters gatherers, or supposedly have been peopled by these people following the established model of societies. This era preceded the pre-pottery Neolithic area that came after the Ice Age. Göbekli Tepe archaeologists excavated what is believed to be a temple of some sort, not a whole town. And we all know that such edifice, such places prove that there had been or there are gathering around or settlements nearby. Jean-Jacques Rousseau model type of societies starts like hunter-gatherers, early farmers, shepherds, metal tools, pottery, village towns, organized labor, government, and religion. Göbekli Tepe gave us a new perspective, according to the author. It says that villages and towns started as early as that era that was supposed not to be the era where villages and towns have started, but people were mostly hunters and gatherers. Now, he said, where did religion come from? And what's the connection between hallucinogenic and religious experience? Humans started as hunters-gatherers, as has been, classified, hunted animals or other humans and gathered plants to eat, and sorted them as what's good, what's bad, and what's poisonous. Large amount of these plants have hallucinogenic properties, chemical effects, hallucination, disorientation, and magical effects. During those times, nature was way wilder than we can ever compare to what we are living now. So some of those people gained wisdom in sorting out plants and became guardians of such wisdom. Those were the priests, the shamans. The author states that gigantic structures such as those massive limestone megaliths that were excavated, or the ones lying under surface, must have required lots of people, lots of strength, endurance, and leadership, food, organizing, gathering, treatment, and of course, religion. So, then he talks about the origin of religion, and this is what I was about to talk about aside, but this is what he is actually, I'm summing up his opinion. The entheogen theory, it's a neologized term in 1979 by ethnobotanists, the ones that study the relationship between people and plants. It means that which caused God to be within an individual, to be one with the God, and that experience of having such hallucinogens caused the people to feel as they have something greater that has been in them, or that they become one with. Entheogen is an academic term, a euphemism for psychedelic and hallucinogen. It's like the same word, but giving it a religious meaning. It is the use of psychedelic plants for religious rather than recreational purposes. That's the difference. When we say psychedelic, it kind of has a negative connotation, but for those times, it was not used for recreational purposes. It was not used just for having fun and gathering around and enjoying oneself, but was for having that kind of experience that had them rise above the things probably that concerns them, or things that make them feel something that extravagant, that's something they cannot explain. Pharmacologist Louis Lewin, who lived between 1850 and 1929, came to the same conclusion in his Fantastica that he published in 1924. He started the study of the drug mescaline by himself experimenting. Analunium Lewini got its name from his. Described the effect of Mexican cactus and natives and how they correspond with supernatural intervention. Now, we don't know what meant by supernatural intervention. Does it mean paranormal or spiritual, divine or demonic? We never know. There was no such explanation or such. There was nothing that clarifies this very particular point. Now, the quotation from the book says, torn of some from his world by primitive perception, material wants and necessities, such as an Indian feels himself transported to a world of completely new sensations. He hears, sees, and feels things which, agreeable as they are, must of necessity astonish him, because they do not correspond with his ordinary existence, and their strangeness must create the impression of supernatural intervention. In this way, an alonium becomes God. The hallucinogenic substance becomes God, or that which allows one to become one with God. Ancient and primitive religious rituals have been strongly linked and enhanced by hallucinogen plants. Such plants are included in ancient texts such as the Vedas and other ancient scriptures. Then he presented the Marsh experiment, the Marsh Chapel experiment. This experiment investigated the entheogenic theory of religion derived from psychedelic. And they have a psilocybin project in 1960s by Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert. Timothy Leary traveled to Mexico in 1960 and self-experimented with hallucinogenic psilocybin containing mushroom. Explored the drug for psychological curiosity. In that research, the Harvard psilocybin project, two groups of students, group 1 and group 2. One took psilocybin and the second took niacin, the control group. It was a double-blind experiment. The experimentees, the subjects do not know anything about what they are going to be in, and the one that administer administer the medication do not know which substance is which. So the others that are above the one that devised the research are overseen, but the rest do not know which substance is which. The chemical substance was given prior to the service in Boston University. Now listen, group 1 reported a powerful religious experience compared to a few from the group 2. The experiments reproduced the same effects under slightly different circumstances on different groups. So they performed that experience on two groups. One were given the psilocybin. The second one was given not a placebo but niacin, and then they asked them about what happened to them during the service, and they said that the one that took actually psilocybin felt like there was a strong connection, a strange religious experience. The other, only a few reported the same. The experiments were reproduced again, got and yielded the same outcome. So psychedelics, according to the author and the people who performed those experiences, have roles in entheogenic belief and religion genesis. So people who used to take those substances and felt those kind of extraordinary experience, the world altars around them, people shaped altars, and they felt those feelings inside and what was happening inside the brain felt then there must have been something great around them, or they have become that something great, and those plants have contributed to them having such experience. And that's how religion started for those people. And the people who gained more experience about these plants were the people who were jealously gathering knowledge about this experience and gained status socially among those people, higher status, because they know better and they can help people have such experiences. The Great Soma debate. Now we are going back to the Hindu and Persian scriptures that talked about some of these plants that he will connect to the mushroom. And that there was such mentioning of the soma. The book asks questions about the substance mentioned in ancient religious scriptures and myths, namely soma, as I said, used by the Hindu Vedas gods. And then what was the substance? He said that Nepenthe used in Odyssey, the drug of forgetfulness. Was it the mushroom? Was it the same soma? And then what were the ingredients in Kikyon drink used to worship Demeter and Persephone in Greek mythology? And the ingredients for potions that had witches fly. Well, or feel as if they were flying. We didn't see any witches fly, but other than on TVs and in cinema. But Robert Gordon Wasson, ethnomycologist, a person that studies the relationship between fungi and society, had researched Amanita muscaria, most famous mushroom discovered accidentally, as mentioned in the book. He traveled to Mexico to study the effects of mushroom in indigenous people, as they are known for using mushroom in religious ceremonies. So even modern people that are still leading some kind of what we might call primitive styles, and they still use such plants in their religious rituals. And native Indians were reported to have been using such plants also. So a big question arises about the identity of soma that appeared in ancient Hindu and Persian scripture, Rig Veda and Avesta, frequent mentions of the soma. It is described as the potion of God, or the potion of gods. It gives fantastic supernatural powers. Wise men or people who had experience in gathering, sorting out plants, knew of the power of soma, used it to communicate with gods. A hymn from the Rig Veda is those are religious, very, very ancient religious Hindu hymns that are still being studied. So there is such hymn here about the soma that says, "We have drunk the soma and become immortal. We have attained the lights the God discovered." Now, what is soma? Is it a cannabis? Is it a fedra? So Gordon Wasson, another scientist that also studied those mushrooms, studied Amanita muscaria, or the red capped white dotted mushroom. It's called also fly agaric. It is very distinct appearance, widely used in pop culture. We have seen it in children's stories, in Alice in the Wonderland, Fantasia, Nutcracker, and Snow White. Effective extract of the mushroom in fluids have an insecticide-like effect. It stuns insects, and it also has a very psychoactive properties that are very potent. It is a large mushroom, as I said, bright red cap, also can be yellow or orange. Amanita pantherina had a brown cap and also has similar psychoactive properties. Facts on soma in ancient texts led Watson to believe it must have been derived from Amanita muscaria. Now, soma is spelled S-O-M-A if you want to research it or something. Modern powerful evidence came from reports from 18th century. Koryak people from Kamchatka region in Siberia. There was a story that was reported by a Swedish colonel that had been incarcerated for 12 years in the area. Reported there were people who drank urine of those who ate the mushroom to get its potent psychedelic effects. Travelers to Russia from different parts of Europe confirmed the effects. Witches and shamans from different Siberian tribes used the mushroom for its hallucinogenic effect. It is reported to preserve its effects up to 5 cycles of passing urine. Now we will understand when they studied it further, its chemistry, we will understand why it can have that effect, like even from drinking the urine of somebody who had ingested that mushroom. So, since the mushroom was scarce in Russia and Siberia, drinking urine was habitual to get the effect of the mushroom. Now, what are the effects? It alters the scale of visual perception. A small crack, the book reports, might look like a gigantic chasm. And that was reported by the British mycologist Mordecai Kubert Cook in his The Seven Sisters of Sleep, the earliest book on psychotropic medications. He described cheerfulness, giddiness, drunkenness, entire loss of consciousness, erroneous impressions of size and distance. It is the mushroom Alice ate to alter size in the Wonderland. Soma was also described in Rig Veda in Hinduism, the Vedic Sanskrit hymns as passed on urine. So similar to what has been reported very recent, relatively, on tribes in Siberia. Ancient Hindu people also did the same. They drank some. Is it the same as that? The mushroom, is it the same as Amanita muscaria? That's why they believe that's the same thing. It's nothing else but that very mushroom, because the soma produces the same effect. And hence the conclusion it could have been only notorious mushroom or derived from it. Indra, disguised as an untouchable, offered the Brahman urine. That's some of the stories that has appeared in the Rig Veda for drink. Offered the Brahman urine for drink. The latter refused, and of course was eaten by remorse when he found out who he had been talking to. So Watson wanted to investigate his hypothesis that hallucinogens were used for entheogenic effect. He was one of those people who believed so, that the genesis of religion was initially started by having such plants and by such plants that alters the mind experience and the brain experience. There was also a mention of the Jesus cult in the entheogenic literature. Amanita muscaria could have been the same. They influence religion, the influence of religion on such mushroom. In his book, John Marco, The Sacred Mushroom, He dedicated a whole book to it. And the cross, in reference to the Christianity, the mushroom was used in the religious fertility sacrament, way before Christianity has appeared. Ancient civilization concerned with the procreation and food, because that was a concern for them, viewed the rain as divine semen that impregnates the earth, and the earth gives crops. He found the root of the name of Jesus. He tracked the religious jargon and lexicon, and then found that Jesus meant in Sumerian language semen. And then the book, when describing how this cult made the comparison between the big psychedelic mushroom with its big head erect into a penis, phallus, and Jesus, which can actually stir controversy and even animosities for the obvious reasons known to all of us. So, as he reports how Allegro thinks that Christianity as a myth that sprang from the fertility sacred mushroom. On the whole, many works came into publication after linked the mushroom Amanita muscaria, the psychedelic plants and psychedelic plants to the genesis of religion. He was not the first. There were many others. Now, he went on studying, presenting the chemistry, tracking the history of these plants, and then he said, let's see what's the chemistry of soma. What are the psychoactive components? He said they were different from the other hallucinogenic substances, psilocybin, LSD, mescaline. Of course, now he's not talking about soma, he's talking about the mushroom. Considered poisonous, not used for recreational purposes, that would make it more of a religious one. Effect depends on the person's expectation. It's what you expect. If you ingest it expecting a very strong religious experience, that's what you get. If you expecting that you will be poisoned, that's what you get. That's what it means here. It depends on the person's expectations. A study by Dr. Jonathan Ott in a Pharmacopoeion book included a study where a group 1 consumed the substance accidentally and they got a poisoning syndrome. The group 2 consumed the substance knowingly, knowing what they are getting into for its and wanted for its psychedelic effect, and got what they wanted. They got the desired effect. Active chemical components that were isolated first was muscarine. It was isolated by the German pharmacologist Robert Oswald Schmidberg as the chemical constituent suspected for the psychoactive effect. They said it must have been it. It must have been this component that does it. He found out it slowed the heartbeat, similar to vagal stimulation. That's what was found out. But this chemical component, exists in a very, very negligible amounts, 0.0003% of the weight of the mushroom. It also stimulates some protein receptors for acetylcholine and produces lacrimation, salivation, perspiration. It acts on the autonomous nervous system, ANS, not the CNS, not the central nervous system. So that substance, it appears it has no hallucinogenic effect. So then it was kind of excluded. The poisoning effect was compared to that of mandrake, datura, stramonium, atropine, belladonna, tropine alkaloids, which inhibit muscarinic acetylcholine receptors with strong effect in the central nervous system and can produce frightening hallucinogenic experience. Schmidberg isolated another substance. It might have been responsible for the effect of tropanic alkaloids, pilzatropine or mushroom atropine. Modern chemistry has shown that Amanita muscaria does not have any atropine-like alkaloids. Researchers that have come after him said no, it doesn't have any of such alkaloids. The real psychoactive chemistry of Amanita muscaria was revealed in the 1960s. In 1964, Japan laboratories in United Kingdom, Switzerland, those laboratories from Japan, United Kingdom, Switzerland isolated ibotonic acid, alpha amino 3 hydroxy 5 isosazole acetic acid, and its decarboxylated product muscimol 3 hydroxy 5 amino methyl isosazole. Ibotonic acid derived its name from the Japanese description water tango mushroom, Amanita strobiliformis, similar in many ways to Amanita muscaria. The mechanism: chemical agent in ibotonic acid, when decarboxylated, produce the psychedelic effect. Some of ibotonic acid is decarboxylated in the gut. Then now when he's going to make a strong comparisons, like convincingly with the mushroom and the soma that has been described in the ancient scriptures. Some of the ibotonic acid is decarboxylated in the guts and cross the brain barrier. The rest, most of it, is passed unchanged in urine. The cycle of injection, the fact of decarboxylation and excretion may be repeated many times. Hence, his belief that it must have been the same used by Siberian tribes and no other than the soma mentioned in ancient Holy Hindu and Persian scriptures. How does muscimol work? Neuropharmacology, drugs with effects on the brain affect neurotransmission. That studies, how the interaction between drugs and their effects. Norepinephrine and epinephrine were the first neurotransmitters to have been discovered. Neurotransmission, it carries, messages. Chemical neurotransmission was shown later to be how nerve cells communicate better. Most of neurotransmission is chemical, except for a few. Ernest Flory, according to the book, Ernest Flory, Austrian native working in California, discovered an inhibitory neurotransmitter he called factor I, standing for inhibitory. It inhibited the stretch receptor neurons in crayfish. Factor I activity was inhibited by picrotoxin. Picrotoxin, a powerful excitatory effect, can induce seizures in animals. Gamma aminobutyric acid was discovered prior to picrotoxin. Its inhibitory effect can be reserved by picrotoxin, bicopoline, and strychnine. Glutamate is another amino acid with powerful excitatory effects on neurons. When decarboxylated, it produces GABA, an inhibitory amino acid. Glycine was found to have an inhibitory-like effect on spinal cord, which in itself inhibited by strychnine. Understanding now you understand why he's talking about why I'm reporting this to you. Understanding the effects of amino acid and identifying them, inhibitory, excitatory, for example, and how some produce what each effect it produces, helped understand how amanita muscaria affects the brain and how the brain works. Muscimol and ibotenic acid found in Amanita muscaria are similar in many ways to glutamate and GABA, with some slight chemical variation. The structure is slightly varied. Ibotenic acid is excitatory, while muscimol is inhibitory. And those are chemical ingredients that have been gotten from the fly agaric or Amanita muscaria, the mushroom, red cap and white dotted mushroom. Understanding the psychotropic effects of such mushroom required understanding the effect of neurotransmitters that produce a similar effect of such type. Agonist drugs have excitatory effects that mimic the excitatory neurotransmitter and activate receptors for such neurotransmitters, while drugs with antagonist effects inhibit and block such receptors in the CNS. GABA has two major receptors. GABA stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. It has two major receptors in the brain. It has others, but these are the two major ones. A is the fastest because it's an ion-gated one. Activation results in rapid synaptic inhibition. GABA A receptors are also the sites of action of muscimol. So muscimol acts on these receptors, hence its rapid effect. 1980s have shown us that GABA A receptors were found to be related in structure to nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, also ligand-gated ion receptors. Nicotinic receptors also mediate a fast synaptic action of acetylcholine in synaptic ganglia and motor neuron receptors. Now that they have identified some of its chemical ingredients and identified their function and what receptors, what brain receptors they can affect, what they can do, they tried to harness it to make it a beneficial thing for modern pharmacology. Neuropharmacology relies on natural products frequently. So Amanita muscaria psychedelic derived muscimol appealed to neuropharmacology. Sedatives, hypnotics, anesthetic, and anxiolytics, the one that helps counteract anxiety. And we have those, for example, sedative, benzodiazepine, hypnotic, barbiturate, etc. Those activate GABA A receptors and were used for epilepsy as sedatives. Pharmaceutical industry decided to harness the effect of muscimol to better use. Benzodiazepine and barbiturate cause dependency and induce sleep that does not yield a restful wakefulness. You take benzodiazepine or barbiturate, you sleep, you don't have a very restful sleep, and also your day, although you're awake, it affects your performance. It doesn't allow you to be, functioning normally as if like you didn't have any problems. Muscimol has a different chemical structure than preceding GABA A receptors activators, and has less side effects. Compared to these, it has less side effects. Dr. Purvell Uh, Korsgaard Larsen, a Danish scientist, and colleagues initiated this trend of muskimol exploration in 1970s. They produced hundreds of GABA and muskimol analogs and created interesting chemical substances. Gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA, is a flexible substance, rapidly metabolized but does not cross the brain. When you ingest it, it does not cross the brain, or even when it's injected, therefore unsuitable for the desired outcome. It's produced in the brain, but when you take it as a synthesized one, uh, either you ingest it or you get it as an injection, it doesn't cross the brain. Muskimol, a natural substance derived from Amanita muscaria, has been found to act on GABA A receptors. Its chemical structure lacks the carboxyl group, but it has this chemical the carboxyl group in the chemical structure of muskimol is replaced by 3-isozazole group. Muskimol crosses the blood-brain barrier and activates GABA A receptors. Those Danish scientists added a carboxyl and amino functions to muskimol to make it a GABA analog. Now, to turn that to a GABA analog, to something that looks almost like GABA but crosses the brain, that's almost a GABA but still has to cross the brain. They cropped some of its structures and added some and make it a new analog able to cross the brain barrier. The new offspring of this, experience was TIP, T-I-P, or gaboxadol. TIP is a fast-acting, very potent GABA A agonist. The indication for TIP, as presented by Korsgaard Larsen and his colleague, the treatment of epilepsy, pain, and schizophrenia. Now you see how it has been infiltrating that much room. From a psychedelic, it's becoming something else. It's becoming a treatment for the brain disease and psychology. In psychology, the patented drug was restudied in 1990s by Melke Lansel, the Max Planck Institute in Munich, and was found to produce powerful hypnotic effects and somnolence in animals. So it was considered for its treatment of insomnia. TIP proved to be a better hypnotic agent as it produced a more restful sleep than its predecessors. Compared with benzodiazepines and barbiturates, they said this is the blockbuster medication. It allows people to sleep well, and they wake up rested and invigorated, with no signs of tiredness. Korsgaard Larsen had Lundberg get interested into his patented drug. The German company, he said, I'm going to get those interested in my products, together with his friends. The company and then started trials on human subjects. TIP, it means 4,5,6 tetrahydroisozole 3,4-C-pyridine-triol. That's the whole chemical name structure. Was rebaptized as gaboxadol. So TIP, T-H-I-P, is now gaboxadol. Lundberg, the German pharmaceutical company, convinced Merck, a U.S. big pharmaceutical company, most known as Big Pharma, to join its effects its effort to present the drug to the pharma market. The FDA had to be convinced. Successful first, the drug had to convince that the drug is a safe and good product and efficient. First, they have to present an IND, investigational new drug application. It should be presented to the FDA, to the Food Drug Administration. Now, it includes 3 phases. The experiment, they asked them, they said, okay, you did your experiment on animals, now we want it on human beings and in the USA. 3-phase trials should be completed with satisfying results before a new drug application is presented to the regulatory body, whether the FDA or some other regulatory body of pharmaceutical manufacturers. First phase trial, general safety test, how safe the drug is to normal subjects. Second phase trial, how well the drug and dosage work for target disease population. You said it's for epilepsy or for insomnia. Let's take a population of this, a number of these people, and test that on them. Third phase trial, more safety tests that include dosage, effects, and how the drug compares to already existing and marketed ones. Once approved, it can be marketed. Once you pass all these phases, it can be marketed. Once approved, it can be marketed. Gaboxadol trials results had Lundbeck and Big Pharma believe they got it's the right one. It enhanced slow waves, unlike benzodiazepine, longer, better sleeps, better day performance. Compared to Ambien, it took less time to target population to sleep. Now, the fall of Gaboxadol, why did it fail? Lundbeck was aiming at having a Gaboxadol scheduled at the lower scale and become an over-the-counter medication, since trials did not show any dependency, side effects, or tolerance. Lundbeck and Merck froze their Gaboxadol project at phase 3 study. Why? First, Merck had bad news about Vioxx, increased their blockbuster medication, as has been described in the book. It showed that it increased risk for heart disease, and they have been embroiled in lots of lawsuits, so they got cold feet as far as Gaboxadol is concerned. They said, that's all they did. Now, second, Gaboxadol did not work as well in human trials in US. Its transport molecule is the same molecule that transports aromatic amino acid like tryptophan. Their diet compared to the European people, they consume 20% more of the caloric intake, and they have lots of protein in their diet. And lots of it is derived from protein-derived tryptophan and supplement 5-HTP. A decreased potency. This fact decreased the potency of Gaboxadol. It no longer compares well to other products as far as efficiency is concerned. Side effects: visual hallucinations, restlessness, and anxiety. Before that, third phase, FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, according to the book, mandated further tests to prove safety, and included tests should include people who were known drug addicts or drug abusers, and also to test the drug at higher levels than what it is clinically therapeutic. Side effects: when this happens, side effects were visual hallucinations, restlessness, and anxiety. When these run by the top executives of Merck, they thought those side effects were similar to LSD. So the offer to adopt the drug was pulled. They said, no, we are not doing it, sorry. At clinically therapeutic doses, however, have there been more patients and more research has been done, or just convincing the FDA the right clinical therapeutic doses, no such side effects were manifested in insomniac or even drug abusers. But there was the risk when taken at higher than was therapeutic. There were detrimental side effects. Studies later have shown that all gamma aminobutyric acid A agonists manifest unusual effects when taken by chronic drug abusers. Long-term drug abuse can alter the neurons underlying the reward response to the drug the abuser is taking. Gaboxadol and masquimol elicited opposite effects in addicted animals. When taken to animals in their experimental lab, they have animals addicted to certain drugs, and then when they gave them a gaboxadol, instead of inhibiting, it excited. It acted as excitatory instead of inhibitory. Years after its original patent had expired, gaboxadol showed to be beneficial in cases of tinnitus. Tinnitus, ringing in the ears, some people have that as a disorder. So then they found out that it's a good thing for such disease. Amanita muscaria finally yielded its secret to the modern science. Amanita muscaria have been the plant that was used in entheogenic ritual, the giant monolith that looked humanoid-shaped to archaeologists in Göbekli Tepe could have been a monumental representation of the sacred mushroom that helped the ancient interact with deity or even become deity. So this is it. It's a long chapter, and I hope I will get responses from you, and then we could talk about it. Next chapter will be about LSD and how they found out the chemical ingredient that can make it, and how they used it in how they tamed it. They tamed it. When I said they tamed it, how they take it from that wild effect and from being just a recreational chemical to something that actually benefits people's health and make them function better. We'll see you next time. Until then, be safe and have a nice time. Thank you.